Hello and welcome to the first League One Lowdown preview show of the 2026 League One season. My name is Sam, and as always for these preview shows, as of last year, I'm also joined by Callum. Good evening, Callum.
Good evening, Sam. Yeah, nice to be back. Feels fresh, feels rejuvenated, ready to get going for a new season. It's quite exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Lincoln fan, it might not be as exciting as the start of last season. But yeah, so we've also got returning for this year is the Predictions League between myself and Callum. The Orient giveaway, which Callum lost last year, will still happen. It's just finding a product in the store that matches the price description that we gave for the start of the year. So it will still happen, but we're not going to break somebody's bank account for the sake of giving it away because that's not fair. But we also, for this year, we will have another forfeit for the loser. It's still 3 points for the correct score, 1 point for a correct outcome, and 0 for the incorrect result. But there is a wild card game this year. There's a new feature. So you can have a wild card game, and if that game happens, so let's say you get the correct score, that gives you 6 points. If you get the correct outcome, it's 2 points, and if you get 0, it's still 0. But there is a wild card game for this year as a new feature. So yeah, that'll be interesting, especially in going into the final game where it was so tight between me and you going into the final game. That wild card could have made an impact. So we're hoping the same happens this year. And the final bit of admin, if you want to give us an idea for a forfeit for this season, leave it in the comment section down below and we'll pick, hopefully, the best one. But with these previous shows, as we're going through the season, there'll be more statistics and stuff like that. But as it's being match day one, if you actually want to hear our opinions on these sides, then go back and watch the season preview that went out earlier in the week, because this will be a blast through near enough and a very short opinion on each side. So let's get cracking then. The first game of the League One season is on Friday night. It's Luton Town, who are recently relegated, versus AFC Wimbledon, who have been recently promoted from League Two. They've made a couple of good signings in the past couple of days of Wimbledon. Dean Lewarcy being one, playing for the fake Dons in League Two last season, playing for the real Dons this season in League One. And Luton Town, obviously, I think it's fair to say, had a very disappointing season last year. Have reinforced the squad. Matt Bloomfield's still in charge. How are we looking ahead of this game then?
I think it's obvious. This one obviously is a TV game, innit? I'm looking forward to that. It feels like the right game. Obviously, a fallen giant. I think is it? Can we call Luton fallen giants? I feel like that. I feel like it's a bit presumptive, isn't it? They've maybe, I don't want to say League One or the Championship's their level. That feels about like where they maybe historically are. Championship probably more, but calling them a fallen giant feels a bit meh. I suppose Wimbledon also were a bit in the fallen giant bracket. I know, obviously, it's a Phoenix club and things like that. But yeah, it's a good game. Probably one of the ones that I would have picked to start the game from a neutral perspective. Obviously, not involving my own club, Lincoln, but Luton against Wimbledon, yeah, very exciting. Especially, it could go either way. Like Luton, as we've predicted them quite highly in our pre-season predictions, as people who have watched the pre-season predictions video will have seen. So I think they could go one or two ways. They could either fly right from the start or really struggle to get on their feet, and Wimbledon will be up for it, especially a couple of new signings. I don't know whether they'll feature with them being recent additions. It depends how much they've embedded into the squad. If they've been training with the squad for a couple of days beforehand, that sort of thing. So I don't want to. I kind of see this finishing as it's good. I know we've barely just started the whole season, but I'm gonna put my neck on the line and say I see this being a 2-2. Both teams being up for it, and maybe Luton. I back them to do things during the season. I back them to do quite well during the season. But I do wonder if they're gonna, just take a bit of time to settle. There's been a lot of discontent in terms of players that might leave, might not leave, that sort of thing. So
it's a good point you make that with Luton, because we discussed it heavily in the season preview. So I'm going to keep it brief. A lot of the players who you'd like, they're big players like Adebayo and Isaiah Jones, haven't featured in pre-season. But they do still have the likes of Melenik Ali, who I really like at League One level. Jordan Clark is still there, and he obviously played in the Premier League. Hakeem Odoffin is the man that you'd love on Football Manager because he has either green or orange circles all over the pitch. George Saville's an excellent signing. So they do have a very good squad. I think they will gel quite quickly because there wasn't mass overhaul. I think there's going to, obviously, Alfie Doherty left this week to go to Millwall. So I think Luton's business will be done quite late in terms of the transfer market. So they may start the season slowly. But in terms of a team, in terms of Wimbledon, which is going to sound quite harsh, regardless of they've been promoted, they're probably the weakest side squad-wise currently in the league. Just purely because I think they're waiting for loans from the bigger Premier League clubs to try and get some youngsters in. The lack of goals is rather concerning. Like you say, we've got Orsi, they've got Matty Stevens, and they've got Omar Bugle, but none of them ever really performed at League One level. So for that reason, I've gone 2-0 to Luton on the season.
I feel like that's probably the more sensible prediction. I've just kind of stuck my neck out on the line because I quite like a juicy opening game, but we'll see.
But if we remember last year, Callum, you set the world on fire at the start of the season with your rogue predictions. So
we'll see.
We'll wait and see what happens this year. Moving on to the second game is Cardiff City versus Peterborough United. Now, in my opinion, these are two sides who need to start well. Cardiff City, obviously, coming down from the Championship. They have kept hold of a mass majority of their squad that got relegated. Obviously, they've got a new manager in charge. They haven't made one signing as of yet, which is surprising. But they still have the likes of Callum Robertson, Salak. Callum Chambers is somehow still playing at League One level nowadays. So the squad is still very good. Peterborough, we are both unsure on. I think it's fair to say we don't know what Peterborough we're going to get. Peterborough are renowned for obviously being a very high-scoring team. I don't know where the goals are coming from, to be honest. This year they've lost Poku, Jake Jones, Cipriano. It's well documented the firepower they've lost. So how can you see this one playing out?
Well, if there's anything like Peterborough's new, quote, brand identity, it will go very badly for them. That is a honking badge, and it's already been routinely mocked online. So Peterborough have already taken an L before the season has even begun, if we're honest. In terms of the game, we've had a lot of feedback from Cardiff fans, maybe even neutrals, about where we've predicted Cardiff to be. Maybe we're a bit out of line in terms of how we've spoken about this compared to the national consensus on Cardiff City this year. I reckon they'll struggle. I've put them in mid-table myself, but more on that in the season predictions. In terms of this game in particular, I kind of just think it's really easy to predict draws because you don't know. So I think draws is maybe the safe way to go. I'll back Cardiff. They're at home. Maybe that'll pay for something. So I'll go 2-0. Why not?
Okay, to Cardiff. So I've gone 1-1 in that game. I have gone for the draw.
It's very easy to predict draws because we don't know where the clubs are going to be.
No.
Do we? So it's like, this way, that way. Who knows? So
moving on to two teams that I think both will be fairly satisfied, I think, in the grand scheme of things with their summer so far. And that's Blackpool and Stevenage. Obviously, Blackpool have recruited, they spent quite a lot of money, I think it's fair to say. They've bought Jordan Brown, they've bought Niall Ennis, the two main players in. They've obviously got Heckway in and Fraser Horsfall, but did lose Rob Apter, which kind of subsidised the transfer fees that they've paid. They've got two new goalkeepers as well. Defensively, I think they're going to be one of the best sides in the division this year. The question mark is obviously over the squad depth. But this early in the season, it's very unlikely you're going to have a mass majority of injuries. And Stevenage look like they're going to try and be that more free-flowing Stevenage that we expected when Steve Evans left.
Yeah, and I do worry for Stevenage this year. Like I said, I've mentioned it many times on the podcast, on the preview show last year. Mentioned it many times on the on the pre-season predictions as well. You should watch that. I don't know if we've mentioned it. I think this will probably be one of the games where Stevenage struggle if they are going to try and be that more open possession, attacking style of football that we kind of assume they will be this year. I think Blackpool, they do have the quality, even at times last year. Obviously, I know there's been quite a few ins and outs, but they have the quality as a club to kind of do that. So I think Blackpool will walk this one 2-0. Strong start for them. And I don't want to say in terms of one of the teams you want to start this season against for Blackpool, but Stevenage would be, I'd suggest, probably one of their favoured choices, maybe.
Yeah, I can't see Stevenage being as physical as they were last year. They're renowned for being a very physical side, where Blackpool have gone down the route of being probably the most physical defence in the league. If Blackpool went and signed Piergianni, they probably got the most physical defence in League One, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I've also gone for 2-0 in that game. Now, this game I found incredibly difficult to predict for multiple reasons. Is Plymouth versus Barnsley. Now, we've had a couple of Plymouth fans in the comments. A bit like Cardiff, say we've underestimated them for the season. The big one is Plymouth don't really have, for me, that striker that's going to fire them to promotion, to be honest. I just can't see that at the moment. Like, they were linked heavily with Romain Barrel, who was at Burton, who's ended up at QPR. That's not happened. Where Barnsley, I've been critical of their summer recruitment so far. But as a three in midfield with Russell, Phillips and Connell, that is one of the best threes, I think, in League One still. So there is that midfield goal threat from Barnsley. It's a long trip for an opening day. Nobody wants to be going to Plymouth on the opening day, especially if you're north of Birmingham area. So I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this game, just purely because I can't decide who's going to win. I don't think Barnsley are going to score many goals at this moment in time. And I can't see Plymouth scoring many goals at this moment in time. Barnsley probably have a more settled side as well than Plymouth, which has probably played into my reasoning that I think Barnsley will score 1. So that's why I've gone for a 1-1 draw.
I think, well, it's a good thing Seb doesn't do these predictions, especially for Barnsley, given where he's predicted them to be. And that will be a running joke this whole year, by the way. And if Barnsley do pull it off, then, fair play, but they won't finish in the top 2. I'm fairly convinced on that. But in terms of Barnsley against Plymouth, it is obviously a long trip. That factors into my thinking, as it will for Plymouth a lot. I think they'll be strong, as are Exeter normally as well, to be fair, at home. They're both quite strong at home. I've kind of just looked past their lack of goal-scoring threat for Plymouth. I just think they've got a decent quality squad. And Barnsley, I do struggle to see, other than Keeler Dunn, I struggle to see much about them, to be honest. No offence. I think 2-1 is probably where this is going, and I can see that happening a lot for Plymouth this year. Even when they're struggling to get through, they probably, because maybe it's just the opposition tiring out, and like I said, the long distance probably factors into it. It is a long distance to travel, even if you're traveling down the night before. It's going to be difficult for teams to go all that way. So I'll back Plymouth 2-1, starting the season off with a win.
Okay, so far, Callum, you've got 3 home wins and a draw, but every home team to score 2 goals. There's your useless facts so far.
I should probably mix that up at some point. But do you know what I mean? It's so easy. So I'm just going with comfortable things. Do you know what I mean? It's when do you switch it up? Do you know what I mean? I might switch it up with this one. Who knows?
I don't think you'll be switching it up for this one. It's Rotherham United versus Rotherham United versus newly promoted Port Vale. We had a Port Vale fan in the comments saying we're idiots basically for predicting them to finish as low as we did because they've got Tolaj, Stockley, Payton, and Ben Waine. Well, Ben Waine has never really done anything at League One level. Payton, I don't particularly rate. Jaden Stockley's done okay at League One level, but he's now in his early 30s. And Laurent Tolaj, I don't believe, has ever played above League 2 level. So my reasoning. Rotherham have got a brand new midfield for this year, a much younger, shall we say, midfield as well. The standout there was Drew Yearwood, who's obviously played in England before with Southend, coming in. Port Vale have had a steady summer, I think it's fair to say. They've added Jordan Gabriel, Liam Gordon's 2 new fullbacks. They're probably the 2 standout. They've added Cameron Humphreys as well, going back to his former club on the opening day. So it's very much we're going to be a very solid unit this year for Port Vale. And this was the first game that I can't believe I'm going to do this on the opening day. I've predicted a 0-0.
Oh,
because I think Port Vale are going to be a very solid defensively sound side this season, I think, Port Vale, but they're never going to score like 3s and 4s. And I think it's the same for Rotherham. Like, they've got Sam Nombe and Jordan Hugill probably as their main 2 strikers. I don't think either of them scores 15 goals this season. A new look midfield needs time to gel, and it's near enough the same defence as it was last year. And they weren't appalling defensively. And for that reason, I've gone 0-0.
0-0. There's always, on the opening day, there's always 2 games that I really look out for. There's always that boring game that just escapes the highlight reel, and you have to remind yourself who you had on the opening day of the season. And there's always a hammering, and I'm struggling to see where that hammering is coming from in these games. but I don't think it's this one. We'll get to it because I have found one, but I think it's a wild card. I'm going to go 1-1. I can see why we think it's a draw. Again, do I think this game will end a draw? Probably not. But do I have enough confidence to back either side to win? No. So I'll go with a draw. Do you know? It's like I mean, basic statistics. You've got an equal chance of winning either way, haven't you? Draw, win, or loss. It's the same either way. But I cannot see this game being remotely interesting.
Sorry,
the Rotherham Port Vale stand has already begun, and it's not even intentional. It's not even intentional. I have nothing against either of them. But there you go.
Moving on to Wigan Athletic versus Northampton Town. Northampton Town have probably been the busiest side in League One so far this summer. I think it's about 14 new players that Northampton have brought in, and they still need 5 or 6 more, to be fair. Kevin Nolan's really stamped his authority on the squad over the summer, facing a Wigan Athletic side who have only brought 5 in, but 3 of them are exactly what they needed. People that can put the ball in the back of net. Paul Mullin being one, Dara Costello being the other, with Christian Sadie also. They're hoping putting 10, 15 goals together. They've kept hold of Sam Tickle. They've kept hold of a mass majority of their defence that was so good last season as well. And I've backed Wigan to have a really good season. And I think it sounds horrible, but this is probably one of the most perfect teams you could play on the open day. A squad that has mass overhaul. They're not going to be gelled together. While they did their business early, a competitive match and a pre-season match are completely different tempos. So for that reason, I've gone 2-0 to Wigan.
This is the game that I've siphoned off as my hammering. I think when you have a lot of players coming in and out, it takes that time to gel together as a squad, that cohesion that is needed, and I think has played quite well into Northampton's hand recently. I think they'll struggle at the start of this year, but I think, as I predicted Northampton to in the pre-season predictions, and I probably said more on this in that episode, I think they'll be fine. I don't worry for Northampton at all, Northampton Town. I just think that they'll need a bit of time to get that 5-point buffer to the relegation zone, and then they'll be fine. As for Wigan, barely any ins or outs. The ins in are decent and probably should flourish under the system. I'll go 5-1, I think.
5?
I'll go 5-1. Maybe I'll live to regret that after Wigan just didn't score any goals last year and were the draw specialists, weren't they? But I've kind of just siphoned it off. And maybe as it came out of my mouth, I was kind of thinking, really? Wigan to score 5 goals? But do you know what? Let's go for it. I can't remember off the top of my head how many goals they scored last season, but maybe that's a considerable percentage, I think it was. Isn't it? But what's that? That's like, that's an 8th that seems a bit of their. That's more than 10% of their goals from last season in one game. But
it was around 38 to 43. I think it was. It was in that
sort of region. We'll see, but we'll go with that.
So the Wigan Northampton game for listeners is my wild card game. So if it's 2-0, I will get 6 points for that one. And also what we're doing, I forgot to mention at the start of the episode. So I'm going to try and keep track of every result we predict throughout the season. And at the end of the season, there'll be a table in the season review show. And we're going to compare the 2 tables that me and Callum have predicted throughout the season with our results and compare it to the tables we predicted at the start of the season. So I just think that'll be quite interesting to see how that comes out. So Bradford versus Wycombe is next in the list. Now, if you're Bradford and the scenario of how you went up, the team you'd probably want to play if you had to play a team that finished in the top half would probably be Wycombe. Another mass overhaul this summer. A manager who we have no idea how he's going to actually do, considering how poor Wycombe were in the second half of last season, because they were mid-table when he took over, and a side that wimped out of the playoffs. Star striker Richard Kone is still rumoured to be leaving the club for about half the money that he was linked for in January as well. Bearing in mind he only scored 2 goals since Mike Dodds came into charge, which was around December time. So while I've predicted a 1-1 draw, if I had to predict a team to win, especially at home, I would probably say Bradford.
Yeah, I think in terms of teams that need their home stadium to be a fortress, it's definitely Bradford. I mean, obviously they've got such a huge stadium, and I'll mention that probably loads of times throughout the season. But I think that's key to them this season. Obviously, Wycombe, we talked about them extensively, really, in the pre-season episode. I don't really know how they'll shape up. They're one of the teams that I'm keeping an eye on, I think, at the start of the year, because I think a lot depends on them, really. They could be up there fighting. With some of the signings they've made, they could have signed a lot of hidden gems, and they could be flying, and, their scouting team might be the best in the world. But they also might have just done exactly what they did in January, just at a bigger extent, and really regret it. So, again, that kind of leans me to back in Bradford 2-1. Again, I should emphasise, because we are predicting your team to lose on the opening game of the season, does not mean we think they will have bad seasons.
No.
Just to emphasise that, I think when it comes the final game of the season, I think Wycombe will probably be ahead of Bradford. But just for the start of the season, I think Bradford will edge it 2-1.
Okay, and as I said, I've got a 1-1 draw. So moving on to Burton Albion versus Mansfield. Mansfield obviously had a storming start last season, had a terrible middle, nearly got relegated, but solidified towards the end because of the amount of injury problems they had. They've had a decent-ish summer, buying in more experience, but blending that with a lot of youngsters in on loan, mainly from Nottingham Forest. Burton Albion have had a very different summer to what they had last summer. They've kept hold a mass majority of the squad that they had last season. The only difference being they have lost Bodvarsson, they have lost Burrell. So all the goals that they had and the two strikers they had at the end of last season have gone. They've added Tyree Shade, who's joined from Eastleigh. Fabio Tavares also made his loan permanent. So there's not been mass recruitment at Burton, but what they've done is kept the squad that was together and performed so well under Gary Bowyer together, which could help them start a lot quicker this year. But I think the quality in Mansfield's squad at the moment is better than is in Burton's. And for that reason, I have gone 2-1 to Mansfield.
See, I absolutely rinsed Mansfield, didn't I? I don't know. I don't know where they will end up at the start of the season. I know where I think they'll end up, but I don't know that. So we'll find out. I've surprisingly, I've not caught much flack from not that I've seen personally. Anyway, no one's come for me. Maybe we've not hit a chord with Mansfield Town fans. Maybe we lost them all last season when I annoyed them. But yeah, I've put them bottom. I've put Burton to just stay up. I'll actually put them. I put them to just stay up. So I'm going to go off that, I think, and I'm going to get Burton to edge it 3-1. And I know that doesn't sound like an edge. Actually, 2-1. We'll go 2-1. I kind of back them to just edge it 2-1. I think maybe this is my wild card. I think, yeah. We'll go with it, just because maybe I'm just still on the Gary Bowyer train from last year. I don't know. Maybe I am, but yeah, why not wild card it in 2-1? I'm still not sure of this, but I've said it now. It's in the podcast, and we don't cut it. So
nope. Moving on to your team, Callum. Lincoln City. They face Reading. And I think we're both in agreement that Lincoln have had a very poor summer.
Yeah.
Sonny Bradley is an excellent signing to replace Paddy O'Connor. I think that's fair. And I think Rowley Towler is a very good signing as well. But that's not, in my opinion, a direct replacement for Sean Rowan. You're still without a natural left back. The issue was lack of goals, I think it's fair to say, last year. Yes, you've got James Collins. But putting all your reliance on James Collins and then Freddie Draper and Rob Street to find their feet this season and score 15, 20 goals between them could
probably asking a lot.
Yeah. I think Tom Bayliss and Jack Moylan, it's a big season for them because they are both very good creatively. But also you've lost Ethan Arahan. So you're a bit, your sort of protector has sort of gone, and there's no rumours really of who's coming in.
To put it into context, in the last 24 hours as of recording this, at 4:15, on the 31st of July, we've had as many contract extensions announced in the last 24 hours than we have had signings this entire summer. There's 2 new signings, Adam Jackson and Tom Bayliss, announced as new contracts for this year, and quite lengthy ones as well. 3 years. God, when did League One ever start having 3 or 4 year contracts? What has happened?
It's mental, isn't it?
The game has gone indeed. I mean, fair play. They I don't know if any player can earn a 3 year contract at this level of football, but Tom Bayliss is good from set pieces, so I respect that. And Adam Jackson is, I think, he seems to be verging towards club legend status in terms of his longevity. Been there ever since 2020. I think he is the joint longest serving player at the club. So, but in terms of the game, obviously it's the homecoming for, if you want to say it, for Porty O'Connor, who left, and we had a good joke about that. That Porty O'Connor is returning to the LNER Stadium despite wanting to get away, which I thought was quite funny. But I think I don't know what I think. There's always a bit of needle between Lincoln and Reading. I don't know what it is. There's like an untalked about rivalry between the two clubs. Like, whereas with Mansfield and Peterborough, it's a bit more on the nose. With Lincoln and Reading, it just feels like it bubbles under the surface a little bit. So there's a bit. I imagine this will be quite a feisty game. I'm going to go 2-1 Lincoln. Maybe that's a bit of bias towards my opening club and a bit of sour grapes that they signed our captain for last season. But Lincoln under Michael Skubala are nothing but resilient, I think, is probably the word. They do have a lot of the mental game, but that mental game is only whether they show up. And at this point, I don't know what to expect from Lincoln. If you take the best player out of a team, sometimes they become even better. So maybe that's the case for Lincoln. Let's just hope that works for the best 3 players and not just one.
So I've gone the opposite way. I've gone 2-1 to Reading. While I think Reading won't be anywhere near as good as they were last year, I've predicted Lincoln to have quite a poor season unless something drastic happens in the last month of the transfer window. So I've gone the other way and have gone for 2-1 to Reading. Moving on to our final promoted side is Doncaster Rovers. They face Exeter City. Jamie's side, obviously, Doncaster Rovers. I don't have too much to say on this one because I spoke a lot about both sides in the preview show. So anything new anyway. So I've gone 2-0 to Doncaster. I think there's that momentum behind these sort of newly promoted clubs, especially at home on the opening day, where Exeter kind of had an end to the season where they kind of just didn't do anything, if that makes sense. They kind of faltered away towards the end of the year. As they do sort of past November time, they kind of disappear like down the table, but they have been fast starters in recent years, so we wait to see if they do that again. But I just think Doncaster, especially at home, they should have enough to beat Exeter, so I've gone 2-0.
Yeah, I with Exeter, we always mention how far other teams have to travel to Plymouth and Exeter, and it's an inconvenience when Lincoln or wherever have to travel all the way to Plymouth or Exeter, but we have to remember these fans do it every other week or every week sometimes when there's three games in a week. So huge respect to Exeter and Plymouth fans alike. It's obviously not easy living in the middle of nowhere and having to get to watch all of these games. In terms of the actual prediction, I kind of back Doncaster here. I think it is a long way to go for Exeter, not necessarily because I think Exeter are in trouble this year. Again, I must state that only because I think you are going to lose Exeter City fans. Please don't, unsubscribe or dislike the video or, anything like that. It's just an opinion. I'll go for Exeter and Doncaster. I'll go 2-0 to Doncaster. Again, and Doncaster Rovers fans, conversely, if you love that prediction, then make sure you do like and subscribe, just because that's a nice thing to do.
So moving on to my team now.
Yes,
Leyton Orient. So I think they place Huddersfield Town, the place where they ended last season in terms of the league season. They're going back there. Both clubs, I think it's fair to say, have had a mass overhaul of players. Orient have 10 in at the time of recording. I expect that to be 12 by the time that game kicks off. I could be wrong. They are just my opinions. There should definitely be one, but there could be two. And Huddersfield, I think, have brought 14 new players in. So it's two completely brand new sides. Josh Koroma going back to the team, which he spent 7 years at prior to rejoining Leyton Orient. So that is and he obviously literally gave us a goal when we went there in May. I found this game really difficult to predict, purely because I think maybe a little bit of a bias in there. Obviously, I have no idea how Huddersfield are going to line up, first of all.
No one.
I have
an
idea what system. No, I have an idea in terms of formation they're going to play, but I have no idea what types of players they're going to play. And obviously, when you have such mass overhauls of players, it does take time to gel. I think it is normal. With Orient, there probably is a little bit of bias. While they've got 10 new players, I just think there's something at that club, especially with Richie Wellens in charge, that just breeds a confidence regardless of what's going on at the club. And I think that sort of confidence breeds onto not just the playing squad, but also the fans as well, which is only a good culture to have at a football club. So I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this one, purely because I do think Huddersfield have a lot of quality in their squad. That's not to say Orient don't, but there's a more quality, I think, in the Huddersfield squad. But I just think it'd take a little bit of time to get going at the start of the season, but I do think a 1-1 draw is a fair result based on squads.
I think this is probably my game of the weekend, just in terms of storyline, in terms of what it means for both clubs and kind of where we see their season going. For Huddersfield, is the overhaul worth it? Is I don't want to say they're going to be the Birmingham of this year, because it isn't a fair comparison, despite me making it on social media several times. But, in terms of the level of players, I mean, they literally bought a Birmingham player this year for the same reason that Birmingham brought him in Alfie May. So I just think with Huddersfield, surely if they're playing two up top and it's not working, you've got two other League One level strikers to bring on. Like, if something's not working, they've got that almost, I don't want to say Chelsea-esque style quality and depth, and just bring on a different system and try and make something work. So I'm gonna back Huddersfield really here. 3-1, and I don't think that's a reflection on how I think the game will go. I do think Huddersfield will just, it'll be 2 late goals or something like that. I don't want to predict how the game will go, because that'll probably make me look even more of a mug. But I just think, Huddersfield have got the quality. So.
And the final game of this weekend is Stockport County versus Bolton Wanderers. Now, I'm not going to say this is a Greater Manchester derby, because I'll get in trouble again, even though they are literally based around Manchester. So I'm going to say a Northwest derby. The Northwest derby. We'll go with that, and I can't be in trouble for that. Two sides who will have the same ambition, I think it's fair to say, this season, get promoted. While Bolton have gone, I think, under the radar, it's fair to say, this summer with signings. They've not signed anyone who makes you go, wow. Stockport have signed Malik Mothersill. They have signed Nathan Lowe on loan. They haven't signed as many as I expected, but all I said they needed in the season preview was a striker. They went and signed a striker literally 3 hours after that was recorded. And especially being at home, I think that's big for Stockport. Obviously, they lost on penalties in the playoff semi-final at home. So it's an opportunity to put their stamp early on in the season. So I've gone for 2-1 to Stockport.
I think I will be watching this game when it happens. I'm excited for it. I think we're actually recording the review show before this game is taking place. So Bolton and Stockport fans, we will cover this game at some point next week. We'll look back on it briefly on the preview show next week, because I think it's a big game for both. These are two sides that we both expect. I think in total we predicted them both to be in the playoffs. We predicted Bolton to finish 6th and Stockport to finish first as a collective. So I'm gonna back Stockport for this one. I think for similar lines as you. We had a couple of comments saying, don't understand the Stockport hype, don't understand it. I just think you have to look at not just the players, but the manager in Dave Challoner. The club as a whole is well run.
Yep, very well run.
And Stockport are a good side. You know, they are a good side. They're a good club. Historically, they are a good club as well. So I kind of back them to win 2-0.
Yeah. Okay.
But and I really hope one of them's an Ethan Arahano goal. Again, I'm not sour at all. I'm really not sour.
Not sour, just disappointed.
Yes. Yeah.
Just to show everyone, before we go, there is on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, the predictions that we've all just made. The star represents the wild card. Just to show everyone, I haven't cheated when I write these scores down.
That 5-1 Wigan is looking very out of place now, isn't it?
So, Callum,
dear me.
I don't think you've noticed something here.
Two.
One away win this weekend.
Why not? Oh dear.
No away wins, and only the one draw. No, 2 draws. Everything else is a home win. So 10 home wins and 2 draws for you.
Starting strong at home. There you go. How quickly will I regret that?
Probably by 5 o'clock on Saturday. If you have enjoyed this, if you have enjoyed the Matchday 1 preview, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, please. That is always greatly appreciated, and follow us on your preferred platforms. Get involved on the League One Lowdown Twitter by following us, and we hope to see you all next week.